Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be discussing the newest makeup announcements and releases. Welcome back, and today I'll be discussing the newest makeup announcements and releases that have been made during the last week or so. About today's video, this isn't going to be a particularly long one compared to previous week when I think we had quite a lot of things launching. Now it's been a bit more of a quiet week, so that is just something to consider. But let's start talking about the newest makeup announcements. Alright, and let's start talking about the launches. So first one is from Adept. So I think Adept is coming out with a mascara. I'm a bit unsure is this new, but I don't think I have at least seen Adept having a mascara before. So they are saying it's a buildable tubing formula that gives you all day volume and length with zero smudging or flaking. I do think it's kind of cool always seeing indie brands expanding before eyeshadow, especially Adept, who is known for making these pretty expensive like multi-chrome eyeshadow palette, so I do think that it is actually quite nice that they are now coming out with a mascara. I do kind of like the one shape, it's a more of a thinner one. I'm gonna be keeping my eye out seeing if this is something that's gonna come to Monolith Shop. Monolith Shop doesn't necessarily stock every product that the overseas indie brands launches, but I'm gonna probably wait and see that if this would come, then how it is priced. But if you've been looking for a mascara from Adept and you are especially into tubing mascaras, I think this is already available on their website. Then I think this was the most notable palette release from previous week. So bellabeautébar and Freya 86 FF, which I think she's a creator here on Instagram on Instagram, and then I think it's also that I'm a bit unsure does the creator have a YouTube channel, but I do know this is an Instagram creator. And this is going to be the Yin and Yang palette, and I do think that if you wanted the Natasha Denona Xenon palette with steroids, I think this is now the closest thing you're gonna get to that one. There's a lot of, like, obviously when you look at it, there's a lot of special shades in this one, but otherwise when you look at the mattes, it is a pretty, you have to like your grey tone leaning palettes in order to like this one. I am glad to see that we are getting like different undertones, but it is a pretty grayscale palette when you look at it. In terms of the shimmers, at least the swatches that I'm looking at, we do have like multi-chromes that do shift to different kind of colors, so there's blue and some green and even yellow leaning multi-chromes, but I do still think that when you look at this palette, a lot of, depending on the lighting conditions, a lot of them might look similar, but then in some other lighting conditions, the shifts are probably more visible, so just something to consider. This is a skip for me because I have discussed this as well. I am someone who has a cool undertone. Because I have a cool rosy undertone, the kind of rosy parts make it so that some of the grays, I can like deal having some grays in my eyeshadow palettes, but all gray palettes are just not my vibe. But if you were looking for or you for example thought that Natasha Denona Xenon was kind of interesting, but you wanted something a bit more special in terms of the shimmers, I do think this is a pretty like good option. But I do also think you should consider this is probably going to be pretty expensive because it is bellabeautébar and it's one of their like bigger palettes. Benefit is coming out with a new brow product, so what else is new in the makeup market, but this is what Benefit is quite known for, so no surprises there. So this is the Dream Sheen Brow Glaze, and apparently this has already been spotted in Germany, so probably, at least in Europe, you can already get this one. I mean, it's a brow gel. I'm a bit like... I'm a bit unsure, is this something that, is it going to be replacing some other, because I do know that Benefit has had brow gels already, like quite a few variations in their collection, so a bit unsure at this point that is this replacing an existing one, or is this like just additional to the other brow products that Benefit does a lot, but again, this is already at least available in Germany and probably also in other European retailers. Then there was a launch that I was thinking this was probably the most, I would say, interesting, but not necessarily in a way that I would want to get this one. So, About Face has launched a new Ballet Bean Highlighting Pearls palette, and there's currently two variations of this one. The other one, which looks to be more like almost having kind of blushy-esque shades, and then there is the other one that has more pastel-esque shade, which I would say that are, for example, fair skin tone. More appropriate for highlighters. Is the formula creams or is it powder? The two gunmetal compacts that each come with 9 3D highlighting pearls made with non-microplastic glitters with soft radiant finish. So if it's pearls, then that kinda does implicate that it's a powder rather than a cream, because I was a bit unsure when I was looking at these. They kinda look creams, but then they are saying that... Yeah, this is very, how should I say, Different. I would like what we have seen in terms of launches, so I do think it's like a positive thing for about face. But is this something that I would be interested in getting? I think there might be one retailer in our country. It's an online retailer that they might actually they do stock this brand About Face. It is one of those like mid-range-esque brands in terms of pricing, so they're not horrendous, but. Yeah, I'm a bit unsure, like, comment down below with this particular release, like, because I'm also thinking about the fact that because these are meant to be cheap products, and for me at least, based on the images, the pan size is looking pretty small, so I'm just kind of going like that, okay, that is this really meant to be something that you're, like, maybe with a finger or maybe with a highlighter brush, which is a smaller, but then when I'm looking at the sort of, especially the shades in the sort of like more like reddish pinkish leaning palette, because some of those shades would probably be also nice blush shades, but then I'm thinking that because the pan sizes, at least in this image, look kind of small, I'm thinking of fitting in a bigger face brush into these palettes without getting like the different shades that are beside each other. That would be kind of difficult, so. Oh, and also, like, is this just meant to be... They are, like, clearly showing that this is, like, more of highlighting purposes, at least based on the model images, so... I'm not going to be getting this one, probably, but as I said, I'm a bit curious, like, what are you thinking about this? Like, is this something that you're in a need for, or would you just consider, like, if you're looking into highlighters, then buying them in a bit more traditional format? Because... I would certainly be interested to like see that what kind of formula is this, because as I said, the description kind of implicates that it might be a powder, but then when I'm looking at the images, this looks like a cream, so it could also be that it's a hybrid formula. Makeup Revolution is coming out, or has already actually launched. I did check, these are already available on their website, so they are coming out with liquid lipsticks. So these are the Lasting Kiss lipsticks, and there are 12 shades available. I do think this is a pretty traditional, like liquid lipstick shades. When I looked at the swatches of the colors, there are like a couple of like nude pinkish leaning shades that I'm kind of into. This is not a product that I am in a hurry to get. I have decent amount of liquid lipsticks that I do use in my collection currently, but maybe at some point when these come to our Revolution retailers, I might grab a few shades depending what shade are going to be available in our stores. But if you were looking for a new liquid lipstick formula from Makeup Revolution, this is already available. Clarins is coming out with a new Cryo collection, so in this one there's actually not that much. There's a bronzer in a new, I think this might be a limited edition one, but I think the bronzer shade itself might be something that they already have in their line. And then I think that there are... What are those? I think there's a lip oil and then I think the lip balm, and I'm thinking that these might have a... Cryoactive technology. Metal, okay, yeah, so it says that at least in the lip oil there's menthol in it, so that's probably gonna have a cooling effect on your lips. I actually don't mind, I don't like lip products that sting or have this sort of burning feeling, but those that have the menthol and have the cooling effect, those I can kind of get behind with, so... not something like, I do think the packaging is kind of cool with the sort of blue-esque colors scheme, but the products themselves, nothing that I'm particularly interested in, but if you are into your Clarins products, I do think these are also already available in some retailers. Colourpop is coming out with liquid bronzers, so these are in similar packaging that I think they have their highlighters and I think they're liquid blushes, so I was kind of already like expecting that, okay, when are we gonna see the bronzers, or is there actually also like contour shades on this one? I do think these look to be more bronzing shades based on that they are warmer. But anyway, I was kind of expecting this one knowing that they already had the like the other cheap products in this similar packaging. How much are these? These are $10 each, so obviously these are very inexpensive, and I do think that if you are especially living in the US, and I do believe Colourpop is available at Ulta at least, I think. And you can obviously shop them from their website, so if you like this formula that was in the similar packaging with the highlighters and the blushes, you might also want to try out the bronzer. At least they are not like priced. The pricing is pretty decent, so it's like you can try one shade and see that do you like the formula. Dior is coming out with yet another very huge lip release, so I think we have seen this like... We saw last year, I think they expanded their sort of like lip product that is in pretty similar packaging actually than as this is, but it's more of a lip balm formula. I think these are meant to be more pigmented glossy lipstick, so these are the new Addict line, the Addict gloss lipsticks. Yeah, so these have more pigment to them, so I do think that if you go to retailers, you probably better not get these confused with the lip balms that they have, because the balms obviously don't have that much pigment, and at least based on the swatches, these seem to have a pretty decent amount of pigment. These seem to have the more like a glossy sheen rather than having sparkles or shimmers in the formula, so that's just something to consider if you are into your like glossy lipstick. And at least based on the hand swatches, these look pretty close to something that we have seen from other brands now launching, so it usually takes luxury brands a bit longer to get caught up with the trend. So we have now seen quite a lot of these glossy pigmented lipstick lip gloss kind of products. I actually I'm wearing the Revolution one, so this is the Fenty dupe. Still not fan of the fact that this is a pretty thick formula to apply. You really need to be careful, because I can actually show mine. This is in a pretty, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this is the formula, it's a pretty gloopy formula. So the application of this one, not my favorite. I do still like the color, so if you are interested in, I'm wearing the color Sweet Rose, but as I said, the Dior is now like coming up with their variation of this kind of product. Maybe the Dior one, because it's a luxury launch, maybe it is not as gloopy and difficult to apply as some of the more inexpensive options that we have seen now with the drugstore dupes on the sort of pigmented lipsticks. But anyway, if you are into this kind of formula and you want to spend the Dior prices, you can, but there are cheaper alternatives. I do think, for example, last week I discussed that Morphe actually came out with their variation of this particular product, so there is now like a fair competition in the market with this kind of products. Okay, I could have discussed this with the Colourpop bronzer release. We are getting also like a full-on collection, so Colourpop is launching a, what is this one called? Pink Dreams collection. Yeah, I'd say if Colourpop was more accessible for me, I live in Europe, it's very expensive and it takes a while for the Colourpop shipping to come here. So I'm automatically out, but I do think this would be one of those collections that if Colourpop would be something that I could pick up from our drugstores, I probably would be at least tempted to get this one, because it is like, obviously it's pink, I'm wearing a pink eyeshadow look today. So there is a 9-pan eyeshadow palette. I think there's 2 Super Shock shadows and all those glosses, or no, those are liquid blushes that are in the image. So there is quite a few things in this one. I do have to say, from the palette, even though it's a Pink Dreams collection, it's not a full-on monochromatic pink, and this could be either a good thing or a bad thing. I do think we are maybe a bit over the monochromatic palette trend, and Colourpop obviously, I'm a bit unsure, is that actually the OG, the one that were in the sort of plastic cardboard packaging, is that one? I actually used to own that one, because at the time, there was a time long time ago before the pandemic when ordering Colourpop from US was actually worth it, but not so much these days. But the original one, the monotone pink palette, if that still exists in their collection, I can understand that it didn't make sense to release another like all pink palette. And I do think for a lot of people, because this has more browns to them, this could be a bit more accessible way of like doing pinks. I do say this is a nice, very cool tone palette, so that is also why something like this would be appealing to me if this would be easier to get. Is this already available? 24th of April. So this is actually going to be launching during the week that this video is going live, so this is going to be available on Colourpop's website soon. So a skip for me because of the availability, but I do think this is pretty cute. And then we are actually having the last release of the day today. So Catrice is expanding I think this is now their permanent line expansion, and Catrice did something similar during last year, that they brought some of their seasonal update items already as a pre-launch available. I think it was somewhere around the like last fall, and now they sort of like then they released like the whole line as they usually do in the beginning of the year. So I'm kind of thinking that is this a similar case? So probably the fall edit is going to be launching depending again how fast they're going to roll it out. But my guess is that the fall launch is going to be happening somewhere around July or August, and now they are probably like launching again a limited like amount of the items that are going to be included in the next bigger seasonal update. I do have to say a lot of these are very I probably think a lot of these are like pretty K-beauty inspired when I'm looking at this. So we are getting, at least there is a cloud tint blush cushion. So these cushion blushes, I think I have seen few variation of these like appearing on my feed, but I'm still a bit 50-60 that is because I'm not a fan of cushion foundations, so that makes me kind of question that is cushion blushes the way to go. Then I think there is a aqua splash. I think that might be a priming kind of product. We have a lip stain, and then there is a more of a like blur reel, and I think that might actually be a more sort of a like one of these very liquid lipsticks that are a bit more comfortable to wear. And then I think there are is there like more? There's more primers, and then there is a lip plumper. So some of these are probably gonna be, if you have Catrice available in your country, these are probably first gonna launch in Germany, and then they're probably gonna start rolling out to the other European retailers during the springtime. But if you do happen to miss these out now when they are pre-launching, they are probably gonna be available on the next like bigger fall edit launch that is gonna be happening later during the end of summer or the latest beginning of the fall. Is there anything that I'm particularly interested in? Not at the moment. As I said, I'm a bit 50-60 because I do kind of like the packaging of the cushion blushes, but because I'm not a fan of cushion foundations, I'm kind of like questioning that do I need to get do I even need to try the blushes. But if you are into the kind of aesthetics or the product type that are in this sort of pre-launch, then if you see these on retailers, you might try a few of these. Catrice isn't that expensive, so at least you're not spending huge amounts of money if you don't end up liking the product, or maybe these could be one of your like next favorites. Those were all the launches I had to discuss for today. Unfortunately, nothing interesting for me. It was a pretty meh week. I think we are now again in the maybe in-between season where we have seen now most of the spring launches have come out, and now we're just kind of waiting for the summer, like more summer launches, especially from indie brands, from high-end brands. We have definitely like seen almost, I think, all the major brands' summer collections at least sneak peek by now. But I think especially with indie, we are probably now waiting for the summer launches to begin. So it is probably understandable that we are having a bit of a quieter few weeks now. If you like this video, push the like button and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future content. You can also find with the same nickname Makeup Hedgehog on Instagram. I hope I can see you in the video. Bye bye!